This video is an overview of the bulk load hose deployment system used by the Palo Alto Fire Department. We will focus on the overall concepts we use to cover all of our stretches that come directly off the engine. You should be able to apply these same concepts to your own hose loads and make similar plans. In this video, we will be highlighting the benefits of the bulk loads we use instead of the pre-connected lines we used to use. This is a simple system that uses several key concepts. The first is a short versus long approach. What this means is we have ways to easily make both short and long stretches. By using a bulk load, we can do both from the same hose bed. The second concept is if we are pulling hose flat or vertical. Pulling hose flat across the ground will use different techniques than gathering hose to bring up into a building. When we do vertical stretches, we break them down into two types. One where we use the intended staircase for the building, and a second that is a shortcut to bypass the staircase when needed. Finally, a couple of terms you'll need to follow along: nozzle and heel. The nozzle is our nozzle firefighter, and the heel is whoever directly backs them up. We use these terms for both fire attack and hose deployment. Our engines are staffed with 3 personnel, meaning the heel position could be our captain or another firefighter from a second crew. These are roles to fill rather than specific personnel. Our hosebed and deployment concepts were learned from the Oakland Fire Department and combined with the nozzle forward system. Oakland has excellent bulk loads, flat loaded and finished with a 50-foot horseshoe bundle. Due to hosebed width constraints and wanting a finish with a 100-foot attack bundle, our beds are more vertical. Here is an example of a short stretch. This stretch is typically under 200 feet, but more importantly is one where the nozzle and engineer can be in communication both visually and verbally, allowing them to make the stretch quickly. The engineer feeds the hose from the bed and makes the connection when using a bulk load. You may use a pre-connect to do this, but as you can see, the bulk load stretch is just as fast. We do not need to clear any extra hose from the bed, and the amount of hose from the rig to the door does not have to be predetermined. The nozzle firefighter will size up the building and make sure enough hose is brought to the target in order to facilitate interior fire attack.
Water! Water coming!
The engineer waits for the call for water and breaks the line, which determines the overall stretch length. We will use most of the same concepts of the short stretch for our long stretches. Our first long stretch will be flat, and for fire attack on a first story or street level fire. Long stretch basically means any stretch that goes a long distance, but also one where we will be out of visual and verbal contact with the engine. This requires radio traffic to get water. In this video, we are able to make the stretch with just the nozzle and engineer. The engineer acts as the heel, bringing more hose to the first turn. When stretching long, we try to free up the captain to do their size up and radio communications. We highly suggest adding a second crew when possible to fill the heel and backup positions, although the captain can perform this role. If you do not use a bulk load for this stretch, it is possible you are using bundles to either extend your pre-connect or a large diameter line with an appliance attached. We used these methods for a long time and now much prefer the speed and simplicity of the bulk load to stretch one or more lines a long distance. Now that we are out of sight from the engine, we will use the radio. It is important the engineer waits for the call for water in case more hose is needed at the target than initially was stretched.
Engine 64 operator, engine 64 firefighter, you can break the line. Copy.
An important detail of the bulk load stretch is that without predetermined lengths, the engineer will need to be ready to pump a variety of pressures. At first this seems complex, but all the engineer will need to do is look at the partially empty hose bed and determine how much hose was removed. The bulk load should have specific indicators or layers to indicate 50 feet of hose. Our indicators are the folds you see flush with the bed. This was a 350-foot stretch. We also have a clear pump chart available and our most common pressures marked on the pump panel. Vertical stretches can be more difficult and less forgiving when mistakes are made. This is why we utilize a simple 2-step process. First, the nozzle and heel will stack up, each shouldering 100 feet of hose. On the previous long stretch, you probably noticed the nozzle was the first to go and was followed by the heel. Here we are demonstrating another method where the heel goes first. This is recommended because oftentimes the more experienced firefighter or the captain fills this role, and they will be making critical decisions that affect the stretch. Our two methods for gaining access to the upper floors are loosely connected to the two most common building types, center hallway and garden-style apartments. But we found that depending on the situation, both stretch types can be used on both building types. We start by determining if we will be using the intended staircase for the building or bypassing it and utilizing a shortcut. We call the shortcut method the outside and in stretch. Here we demo the nozzle taking up 150 feet of hose in order to perform a coupling drop by dropping the 50 feet of hose handed to him by the heel. We found the coupling drop to be the fastest method, but other methods include using tools or rope to raise the hose or throwing a ladder to bring the hose up. We highly recommend throwing a ladder at some point to ensure safe egress is available since the stairway is being bypassed. The heel may have chosen to continue up with the nozzle firefighter if another backup was available to reconnect the line at the drop point. This is especially important if the captain was performing the heel position. Don't forget to tie off the line, as once the line charges, if it is not tied off, it will fall back down to the ground. Just like with our other stretches, the nozzle firefighter has brought enough hose to the target in order to perform interior tack inside the building. When the staircase will be used, we perform an inside and up stretch. This is one of the best times to have the heel lead the stretch. This allows the nozzle firefighter to follow the heel and clean up the hose in the stairwell, making sure that it stays to the outside and once charged will not be jammed underneath the railing or a step. We typically estimate one length of hose per floor of stairs. Some staircases have a center well that you can stretch the hose directly up. Consider this option as it will save you managing hose on the stairs and use less hose for the overall stretch. We call this the well stretch, and it uses one length per 3 floors.
Okay.
This concludes our methods for stretching hose, both short versus long, flat versus vertical, inside and up, and outside and in.